Welcome to the H.E.A.L, Help, Elevate, and Learn podcast. This podcast is a guide to healing your inner child and maturing your inner adult. This is the place where we slow down, look within, and begin the journey of restoring what was lost, silenced, or forgotten. Here, we believe that healing the inner child is not about reliving the past, it's about rewriting your future. Together, we'll uncover the wisdom, the strength, and the love you've always carried inside. So take a deep breath. You're safe, you're seen, and you're right where you need to be. Hello, everybody. How you doing today? This is Sakoni Prince, and I am super excited to be bringing you another episode of the H.E.A.L podcast. And this is season 2 of this life-changing podcast. I can't tell you how excited I am because my guest today, our guest today, is going to be able to pour into us and help us to not only also heal our inner child, but mature our inner adult. But listen, we want to make sure that we actually thank our sponsor, and that's none other than BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable, it is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal or choose Sakoni Prince Heal during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. And again, we want to thank our sponsor, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this amazing episode. And man, I can't tell you how excited I am to have our guest. He's none other than Chris McBride of the McBride Institute. And he's been on our podcast before, and I had to have him back. He's my first guest that I have for season 2. So let's welcome none other than Mr. Chris McBride. Chris, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You able to hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you fine. Fine. How you doing, man?
Blessing and progressing. Every day above ground is a good one. So today is a good one. Thank you for having me again.
Yes, sir. Thank you for agreeing to be on our podcast, man. I've been checking out your stuff, and I do have to say this. There are some people that you can actually listen to, and you just resonate with them, and in fact, with their passion and their purpose. And Chris, you've definitely been in fact, one of those individuals for me as well. So again, I'm honored to have you on our show. So tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Well, right now I help successful professionals who are haunted by emotional scars to re-heal from their past, to reclaim their confidence, and also restore harmony in the home. So I deal with a lot of toxicity in relationships, dysfunctional relationships, people who have internal conflicts, whether it's limiting beliefs or some type of incongruency within their nervous system or spirit. And then just kind of helping people resolve that and release the negative feelings from their nervous system. That's kind of been my focus the last couple of years.
Man, I'm telling you, that is so needed because our nervous system can't really survive too long in that fight or flight, you know, mode. We have to be able to actually calm it down. So once again, I applaud the work that you're doing, and again, I'm just grateful, in fact, for this opportunity. So listen, I wanted to hop in just real quick to some of these questions. And I know last season I had a lot of the same questions, which I asked everybody. But I have some new questions because, again, I'm working on not just healing the inner child, but my next book, my sequel, is going to be entitled Heal, Help, Elevate, Learn. But the subtitle is A Guide to Maturing Your Inner Adult. Because once you heal, then the next thing is to start operating in that healing. And so, my first question is, what does maturing your inner adult mean to you, and how has that shown up in your personal journey?
So for me, it means being grounded, uh, recognizing the needs of your younger self and being able to give that to yourself, being
Mhm.
able to reparent yourself, whatever it is that your younger self or your wounded inner child needed, whether it was acceptance, whether it was love, whether it was understanding, whether it was patience, whether it was some type of guidance, whether it was protection. Being able to be in tune with that still wounded version of yourself and being able to give those things that the wounded inner child needed in the presence. That's part of maturing your particular inner child, because we all get stuck a lot of times emotionally and mentally sometimes when we stopped learning to heal. This is why when people get triggered, most of the time they act like children, because the
Yep.
age in which their growth stunted starts to submerge. So being able to just tackle those particular challenges. How it showed up for me was not feeling like I needed to perform for my worthiness, uh,
Mm,
and really just kind of have self love, because I was always seeking it from external circumstances and always needing external validation. So being able to recognize that I was just enough and start to give myself the love that I was always seeking from other people is how it showed up for me.
right, right. And being able to self regulate is so important because if you're always waiting for somebody else to feed you, you may starve to death. And so, and just using the analogy of where, if when we were children, we were waiting for someone to come and fix us from lunch. But, once we got to a certain point, we were able to go in there, we could fry some bologna or, fix us a peanut butter jelly sandwich and do something, to help feed and to help, in fact, maintain us. And I believe that's the same thing that's needed even as we mature. And I love what you said about just being able to reparent ourselves and actually give that part of us that still needs that, so we're not beholden to someone else. So definitely a great start, in fact, to this podcast. So our next question is, in fact, many of us carry unhealed parts of our childhood. What are some signs that your inner child is still in control of your decisions today?
Um, I would say probably you overreact to small triggers because they probably remind you of old wounds.
Mm.
I would say you're always avoiding certain triggers because they remind you of old wounds. You become kind of like the cat that touched the hot stove, so now it wants to avoid all stoves. It didn't learn to touch a cold stove. It didn't learn to distinguish between a cold and a hot stove, or a stove that's not working at all, or a stove that's turned off. It's just all stoves is hot stoves. I'm gonna stay away from it. And so that's a clear sign where you're just always trying to avoid something. One of my things was, like I said, I needed external validation to feel worthy, to feel successful. That's a clear sign. If you're avoiding hard conversations or conflict because you fear on some level will lead to some like a rejection or abandonment, that's a sign that you're a wounded inner child. If you're
Mm.
constantly shutting down emotionally or withdrawing because you feel like you're going to get criticized or misunderstood or you'll be ostracized or whatever it is, that's a sign.
Right.
You're sabotaging good relationships because there's a part of you that feel like you don't deserve good relationships, or there's a part of you that's always not safe around people, or you're always kind of like waiting on the other shoe to drop when it comes to when you're in a good situation or with a
Right.
relationship, and you're just like, it's something bad about this person. Let me find it. And what you seek, you will find.
Mm.
So that's a sign. Always chasing achievement. You're being obsessed with always trying to workaholics, but also achievementaholics. So again, you're always just trying to mask your worthiness with medallions and plaques and all these different things to show you're worthy from the outside, but you don't really, none of that resonates on the inside. So it doesn't matter how much you achieve, you're still feeling like you have to prove yourself or that you're not worthy of. And then if a lot of your decisions is driven off of like fear, worry, doubt, things like that. And then if you're always feeling a deep level of shame because you're making mistakes, those are the common uh, signs that I see that people typically have a wounded inner child.
Right. Right. There were several things with while you were talking. I was reminded I had a coworker of mine one time, and she said that her granddaughter would hide her keys and her phone. Every time she gave her to go somewhere, she couldn't find the keys and she couldn't find the phone. So what she started doing was she started telling, "It's hot. It's hot. The keys are hot. The phone is hot." And her granddaughter, probably about 2 or 3 years old, and she had touched a hot stove, and she, in fact, knew what hot was. But I told her, I said, "You're not really serving her right because you are, in essence, lying to her. Because if you keep telling her the phone is hot or the keys are hot, she's going to expect for when you to pick it, you drop it. Or same thing, in fact, with the keys. And so if you start off telling them something like that, then what happens is when they find out that it's not true, well, then they start questioning everything else you're saying. And that reminds me of, there was a point where our oldest daughter, we, I think it's the first time that we actually allow her to spend the night or stay, in fact, with somebody for a while. And I had actually told my wife, I said, okay, look, we need to go in there and we need to tell her that we're gone. She was like, no, no, no. In fact, let's just kind of run. And I said, no, you can't do that. I mean, yeah, she may cry, but she'll know that we're gone, but we're coming back. Because if you just disappear without letting her know that you are gone, what happened is anytime she don't see you, she'll think, okay, well, in fact, it could be gone again. They could have just ran out. So I wanted to make sure that we told our daughter, okay, we're going, but we'll be back. Okay. And yeah, of course, she cried for a little while, but then about 5 minutes later, she was fine. And when we got back, it was a great reunion. But I know that, in fact, when it comes to children, doing that, being, having that level of truthfulness is so important. And even for us as adults, being able to have that level of truthfulness with ourselves. And I could really relate to what you said about, people being overachievers. And I know that I myself, I love helping people. I mean, honestly, that's just a part of my DNA. It's a part of who I am. But I also see a part of, what you were talking about in myself. And I've tried to make sure that I am working to regulate that part of myself to where I don't always have to be the one that saves the day. I don't always have to be the one that, shows up and, in fact, makes a difference. But when the opportunity presents itself, if needed, and I definitely want to be there to help. So that's something that I'm actually
Look,
dealing.
it isn't a bad thing. It isn't bad to show up. It isn't a bad to want to achieve. It isn't a bad to work a lot. It isn't a bad to, want to fulfill your purpose because, this type of work, excites me. I feel like this is why I was created. So it isn't a bad thing doing it. It's just simple fact that if you feel bad in sitting still, and that is what causes you to feel like you need to constantly be moving to do these things or to achieve more or to get another
Right.
notch in your belt, that is when it becomes problematic. But if you are comfortable in stillness and you are not trying to avoid anything and you just like doing the work that you're doing, then that
Yeah.
isn't an inner child wound. That's more so a person that's locked in on a purpose, a person that's just grinding, a person that's really trying to build. It's
Right.
literally the component that has to be there is like when I'm sitting still, I'm not comfortable. So that is what's driving me to do all of
Right.
these other things, to stay busy, to think movement is active, to think movement is achievement, to think activity is progress. When actuality, most of the time, it's just busy work. We're not even
This,
really doing anything.
yeah, that's so true. Hey man, listen, I'm gonna look at some of our comments. We got coming in from Dr. Ladanya says, good evening, blessings. We have Samuel who says, congratulations. In fact, watching live from Kimberia, in Nairobi, Kenya, following live great inspiration. God bless you. We got Isabella Cruz Black. She says, I was just jumping on and I'm already loving, in fact, what I'm hearing. Thank you. Well, I'm telling you, these type of conversations are needed. And that's one of the reasons why not only do I want to write the book, but I wanted to keep the conversations going. I wanted us to actually be just, again, I wanted to start the conversation, not end it, but start the conversation. In fact, when it comes to inner child wounds, inner child trauma, inner child healing, and even more so now, inner child, or in fact, maturing our inner adult, because we can't just stay in that kindergarten state. We have to actually get to the place to where not only are we regulated, but we can then help regulate somebody else. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to just keep this going. So our third question is, how can someone begin to recognize the difference between reacting from their inner child and responding as their mature adult self?
I wish I had my wallet on my wallet is in the car, but inside my wallet I keep this little coin that Bob Proctor gave me. RIP to Bob Proctor. But
Mhm.
basically on one side it says if you respond, it will be smooth and the texture of it, or if you respond, you are in control and the texture of that side is very smooth. The other side says if you react, you're out of control, and then that side is very rough. And
Mm.
so it's a coin that you can get from his website still today. They're only like $10. I bought I don't know how many of them and just gave them out to people who react impulsively or
Mm.
react from their wounded inner child, because
Right.
one of the clearest ways that you can tell is that it's unconscious. Well,
Mm.
trigger when we're reacting, that is an unconscious thing. And so when we react, it's going to be rough most of the time when we act unconsciously,
Right.
because when we react unconsciously, we're not really reacting to what's there. We're just projecting. They've done countless studies where they said or they've shown that what we see isn't really what's there when we're looking. What we see is actually what we believe to be true, what we're actually looking at. So if I'm looking at a guy and I see him crying, my first thought might be he's a weak nigga because I see a guy crying. That's
Right.
phase one. Most people do not go into phase two, which is challenging their assumptions or their stereotypes. They literally just go based upon the initial thought that come into their head. But then
Right.
further examination, I might go up to him and start talking to him like, damn, you just lost your wife? Or damn, your mother just died. That's why you crying. You're not just crying because you're a weak nigga. You're not just a weak person. So
Right.
the clearest sign is being able to notice that you're challenging the initial thoughts that come up, because that's a reaction.
Mm.
So, because that's a projection as well. And most of the time, we're projecting our unresolved wounds onto the person that we're with now. This is why Kevin Samuels would always say, making the person in your present pay for the mistakes of the person of the past will equal a future with nobody. Because
Right.
the person in our present does anything that resembles what somebody did to us in the past that's tied to them old wounds that's unresolved, we're about to bring all that emotion that we wish we would have brought to the person in the past. We're about to bring that to this person right here. And they might have even done what that person in the past did. They just did something that reminds us of it. And we're bringing all of this emotion. And they might be like, bro, what the hell? And they just wonder why you overreacting. Like, that's a clear sign when you are unconsciously reacting. Responding is more so a conscious thing. That's why I would keep that coin with me. It's in my car right now. I wish I had it on me. I'll send a picture or a video of it later so you could actually see it, because it literally revolutionized how I was able to respond to certain situations. Because when a person was triggering me, I would just be rubbing that coin. If I respond, it'll be smooth. It's gonna be smooth. But if I react, it's about to be rough. So I gotta. It's gonna get rough, and it's gonna get rough because, again, we might self-sabotage a relationship that we really, really like. We might lose a job because we overreacted and all that stuff, or we might, cut off a friend because they might have did something that reminds us again of something that somebody did in the past, but they didn't do actually what the person did in the past. So we're ruining all of these things that's going on in our life because we refuse to deal with that hot stove of the past. So now, again, we're treating all these things like hot stoves. And that person's like, bro, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I literally have good intentions towards you. But just because of what I done resembles something that somebody else did, you bringing all this to me like I did. So that's one of the clear signs, recognizing, is it impulsive? Is it immediate? Is it emotionally charged? Is it fear driven? Is it anger there a lot of times? Do you feel like fight or flight mode? Or if you're really, really triggered, are you in freeze or fold mode? Fold is them times in life where you kind of like want to fold up into like a fetus position and all that.
Right.
That's in the same survival triggering as fight, flight, or freeze. So recognizing if it's any of those responses. How can you tell if you're responding? Because you pause, because you contain that emotion for a period of time. You could still feel angry, but you don't allow that anger, you don't allow to act out of that anger. So you pause, you can contain the particular emotion, and then you make a wise decision based upon that. So again, you could be emotionally charged, and the old you would have just did something without thought, but you can tell that you are actually healing and responding when you can pause, contain that emotion, and then choose a better course of action that will get you the desired result.
Right. And I've had to put that into practice myself. And even in a lot of my presentations, I talk about, we don't have first reactors, we have first responders. And the first responders are the ones they run drills. In fact, they go through, training, so they know, okay, look, when this happens, these are the things that we need. So in fact, whether it's a natural disaster, a man-made disaster, whether it's a car accident, whether it's a tornado, fire, whatever it is, they train so they can respond, and then they have a response for it. And yeah, I love what you said about, are we reacting or are we responding? And I know for myself, I had to actually pause, say, okay, I can't react. And like you say, your first inclination is to just do what you normally do. But when you want to mature and when you want to show yourself in a different light and grow past your own hurt, you have to pause and say, okay, this is what I used to do, but this is what I want to do. And it takes some time. It literally takes some processing time. In fact, before what you want to do, your response can become your reaction. Most of the times our reaction was rooted out of pain, hurt, and all those things that have kept us back. But if we reprogram ourselves, then we can have the response that we want. And if we do it enough, that response becomes our new default or our new reaction.
I agree wholeheartedly. And one thing that I help my clients with, because this is why King Solomon in the Bible says, without a vision, people perish. So if you don't have a clear image or if you don't have a clear idea in regards to what it looks like to respond differently, you're going to feel stuck. You're going to feel like you have to respond this particular way. So what I always help clients do is to think about somebody that that doesn't respond that way in that particular circumstance, who doesn't have that trigger, who has the response that you want to respond. And then you think about how they actually would handle that situation. Watch it in your mind, in your imagination. And then that gives you a clear image of how to do it. Because without an image, you will feel stuck. But literally the quickest way to get clarity on how to get an image is by not limiting yourself to your own perception. So you have to go to other people who is somebody that's not stuck in that area, and then get examples from them. You don't got to physically even go talking to them. Your subconscious has been exposed to them enough where if you just imagine them in the circumstance, they will do something different than you do. And then that gives your mind a course of action for you to do. And then you start seeing yourself respond in that particular way over and over again. And you keep replaying that memory. And then unconsciously, you will start to mimic that particular behavior. So that is always what I tell my clients. The greatest challenge is that they literally don't have an idea of what to do. So literally the easiest way to resolve that is to go to somebody who does have an idea of what to do in that particular moment, and then just borrow from them. And then literally, once you got a clear idea of what to do, the feeling of being stuck or feeling like I gotta respond this way goes away, because now you have options.
That's true. That's true. Now, here are some of these comments. Here, Dr. Danya on YouTube said, "Wow, this is good." She also said, "Like you better speak." We got Isabella here. She's saying, "Speaking my language, international or intentional living," and she comes back to say, "Emotional, in fact, maturity. We have to build new muscle memory," and that is so true. You know, we have to make it a point. Let's see. We have, in fact, one other here. In fact, Dr. Danya on, in fact, YouTube, she said, "Yes, every emotional response is a reaction. Take the emotion out of it for a healthy, emotional, intelligent response." And that is so true. And again, this is not our default. So we have to intentionally make these changes. You know, we have to consciously seek to do that, because if we don't, we will just be first reactors and not first responders. All right, question number 4 says, in your experience, what role does forgiveness of self and others play in the healing and maturing process?
Forgiveness doesn't excuse the pain. It doesn't let the person off the hook. It doesn't mean that the person has access to you again. It doesn't mean that what the person did is permittable or should be repeatable. Forgiveness is literally just removing the power that the situation has over you. And a lot of people struggle with forgiveness because they feel like forgiving means that wiping away what the person did, letting the person off the hook, and all of these different things. But we don't really realize in regards to forgiveness is that anger, resentment, any of these negative emotions, they're like us drinking poison but expecting somebody else to die.
Right.
It's going to do way more damage to the vessel it's stored in than anything that it could be poured on. So that's really the role of forgiveness, because without forgiveness, it's going to set up anger and resentment. And those two emotions, a lot of times, is the foundation of dysfunctional cycles. So if you still got this anger in your heart, a lot of times we're going to be the people that's, like we said earlier, making the people in our present pay for the mistakes of the people in our past. So unless we heal, we're going to constantly be bleeding on all these people that didn't cut us. We're going to be constantly making all these people pay for stuff that they didn't do. We're going to be running people away that genuinely love us. We're always going to be projecting all this negativity on people that may have our best interest at heart, or that may is really trying to give us useful information or really trying to be helpful, but we can't see it because we're so hurt off of the last person that we really let in, and then they betrayed us, or they abused us, or they cheated on us, or they abandoned us, or whatever it is. So we got to be able to heal. This is why them quotes used to say back in the day, you got to love like you've never been hurt. Because without that, you won't really be able to get a full experience of love. You'll get a very handicapped, crippled version of it, because you won't allow yourself to fully be exposed. You won't allow yourself to fully show up. You won't allow yourself to fully give. And therefore, you won't get the best out of your partner because you're not really giving them the best. You're almost like double dutching in a sense where it's like part of you is ready to run, but the other part of you is ready to jump in to the relationship. And a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Double-minded woman is unstable in all her ways. So without forgiveness, you become double-minded. You become the person where it's just like, I want love, but I fear getting hurt. You know, I want to make this relationship work, but I fear rejection. You know, I want success, but I fear rejection. I feel failure. And it's like those things will cause us to self-sabotage. So that's a critical role that healing plays.
Yeah, yeah, and that is so true. Uh, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm getting so much out of this, and I mean, I see a lot of people are commenting online. Let's see, Isabella here, in fact, she says 100. In fact, she even come back, with the fire emoji, and that is true. And that is true, man. And so these are the type of conversations I could honestly have for hours and hours because I know that understanding, in fact, myself better is going to allow me to experience, in fact, relationships better, and it's going to allow me an opportunity, in fact, to make a difference, in fact, not only in my own life but in the life of those I've been called to serve. And I think that's one of the reasons why God led me down this road of personal development, because it's like I tell people all the time. In fact, no matter where you go, you're there. And if you never develop as a person, in fact, you take the same thinking from one relationship to the next, from one situation to the next, one job, one goal, to the next. But if you take the time to develop yourself, uh, and with help, and I mean, oftentimes, we need conversations like this. We need books like this. In fact, we need to go to people like you and go to your institute in order to get the understanding that we need. And see, that's why conversations like this are needed, because again, they raise our consciousness about things that we can do. So many people are stuck in a cycle of, a good friend of mine, she would always say, it's not what you can't do, but what can you do? And we oftentimes look at our challenges as being just too big for us to handle. But we have help. And in fact, we have all the help available at our fingertips. But we have to be willing to put ourselves out there to not only get the help. And I was telling somebody about this the other day. Exposure doesn't mean mastery. Exposure doesn't mean mastery. Just because you see something or hear something doesn't mean that you mastered it. You can use it as a model, and you can then learn from it, and you can try to actually do what you've seen. But just because you've been exposed to something don't mean that you're mastered it. And I love what you said earlier, and I have included this in a quote, and that is, if you don't heal from your hurt, you will bleed on people who didn't cut you. I'm going to say that again for those that are taking notes. If you don't heal from your hurt, you will bleed on people who didn't cut you. And that's a summation of what you said earlier about how, people are paying for somebody else's wounds to you, and and we have to make sure that we're not unjustly indicting somebody who didn't do anything to us, you
Yeah.
know.
And we all do it too. So it's like you might be a person that you refuse to let people help you. You want to do everything yourself. And why are you doing that? Because you're making the people in your present pay for the mistakes of people in your past. Because your parents let you down, or an ex-business partner let you down, or an old childhood friend let you down, and now you don't rely on anybody. You might, you know what I'm saying, not want to open up to people and all that. And now
Mm-hmm.
you're making everybody in your present pay because now they not getting a vulnerable side of you, which limits intimacy and all that stuff, which limits the feeling of connection. And why? Because your old girlfriend or your old boyfriend or your parent violated you back in the day. And now you just like, you know what, I'm not opening up to anybody. So we all do it on different levels. So we just want to be mindful of what ways is my unresolved wound still kind of showing up that I'm making everybody else around me suffer for something that they didn't cause. Like Drake said, I'm dealing with a heart that I didn't break. And on some level, we're all doing this to other people.
Yeah, yeah, that is so true. And you know what? I'm actually glad that you mentioned that. Because nowadays, in fact, we're dealing, even in the music industry, in fact, we're dealing with more things like that. To where people are really speaking to that, and again, helping us to raise our level of consciousness about how we act and react, how we interact with each other, and for us to hopefully take a step back and look at ourselves and see, is something I'm doing today, is it a result of something that happened yesterday or last week, last month, last year, 10 years ago, 20, 30 decades ago? For us to have that level of awareness, I think is needed, because without it, again, we'll just keep reacting and we'll keep fact repeating the cycle.
And a quick say, I know you want to go to the next question,
No,
but
no, go ahead.
Strategy that I help clients with in regards to being able to find the root cause of why they might react certain ways and all that stuff like that. Because unless we go back and deal with that, I call those imprints. The imprint, which is the earliest experience, the earliest memory in which you can remember reacting a certain type of way. A lot of times that is what started your journey of responding that particular way, because we don't do things that isn't in our Rolodex of experience. So there's a certain imprint where you either witnessed it or somebody did it to you kind of along that journey. But a lot of times we're not connecting the dots. So when people show up to me in therapy, they're constantly talking about current day reactions. Inevitably, I try to get them to go back to the first interaction like that. We work on that memory, and literally how you show up in the present immediately changes. So a person got to be able to go back and recognize. And one of the clearest ways to do that is what's known as a Tices log. TICES. T stands for trigger, I stands for image, C stands for cognition, E stands for emotion, S stands for sensation. So let's just say I'll do this for my example. I used to have trust issues and all that stuff like that, serious trust. And so this is when I was with my son's mom, not when I was with my wife, my girl. This is when I was with the woman before my wife. And, anytime she wouldn't answer the phone, I would start to just feel she was on bullshit. You know what I'm saying? No matter what the fuck was going on, I would just feel she was on bullshit. And so I got to therapy, and my therapist was like, well, has she ever done anything to you to make her not trust her? And I was like, no. He was like, have you ever trusted her? I was like, no. Did you trust the girl before her? I was like, no. Have you trusted any woman? I was like, no. And it was just like, damn. Like, so it made me go back to my child. He helped me go back to my particular childhood. And what I realized is that my trust issues didn't even stem from a relationship, a romantic relationship that I was in. My trust issues stemmed from my mom had to work a lot, so I was around a lot of her sisters, and a lot of my aunties had some type of issues in which they got pleasure from torturing kids, and so always having us in a state of anxiety. So me not trusting my aunties turned into me not trusting women, period. But until I was able to recognize the inception of it, I kept just looking at it as a present day issue of just the girls that I was involved with. They were just an object of displacement. The real issue was the inception of when I was a little kid and I started forming these beliefs that I can't trust women. I'm not safe around women. All of these things, a woman's going to do you bad. A woman's going to bring harm to you. These were the thoughts that I started to form. So back to the Tyson's law. You want to figure out what is the trigger. For me, my trigger was her not answering the phone. What is the image that comes to your mind as a result of this trigger? So again, I might start playing scenes in my head of her bullshit, being with a nigga or going, you know what I'm saying, being on a date, having sex with somebody else, doing whatever it is.
Right.
C, what is the cognition that comes to your mind as a result of this? What are you telling yourself as a result of this trigger and as a result of that image? As a result of the cognition and the trigger and the image, what emotions, that's what the E stands for, what is the emotions comes through your body? And then what sensations represent that particular emotion? Do you got sweaty palms? Or does your head sweat a little bit? You got your impulse, like you got pulses and your chest is kind of going a little hard. You got numbness in certain parts, or you got a tingle in certain. What is the sensations that's going on that represent that particular emotion? And when you can keep all those things in your mind, think about the trigger, think about the image, think about the cognition, think about the emotion, think about the sensation. And in your mind, try to drift back to the earliest time you felt all of that in combination.
Wow.
Time the imprint will pop up, and it will be something completely unrelated. You'll be like, well, I'm thinking about when I was 6 years old and mom and dad was sitting there talking about something and da-da-da. And that's the memory that we got to work on, because it's crazy as it sounds. That's the thing that's driving your reactions today.
Right. Wow. That's yeah. Man. That's man. Okay. All right. All right. So man, let's see, we already at 38 minutes, but still, man, this is great stuff. All right. So in fact, next question is, what practical daily habits or practices help to nurture both the healing of the inner child and strengthening the inner adult?
Visualization. I was just on doing a consultation today with some people that's looking to sign on my services and all that. He was saying that he needs to start doing more mirror work and all that, which is going to the mirror and kind of giving yourself affirmation. And what I always tell my clients is what you see is more important than what you say. What you see is more important than what you say. So it doesn't matter that you're going there and you're saying, I'm this great person, I'm mature, I won't respond in anger or whatever it is. If the words that you're saying in affirmation doesn't reflect the mental images that you play throughout the day, then it doesn't matter. The mental images or your imagination is what's actually going to win. So the best practices is to literally see yourself giving your inner child everything that it needs. Every single day for just 15 minutes, as soon as you wake up, you can just close your eyes. Imagine your childhood bedroom. Imagine the 10-year-old version of yourself or the 7-year-old version of yourself in that childhood bedroom. And literally go in your imagination and ask that version of yourself, what is it that they're needing? And listen to what they tell you. Don't try to project it on there. Oh, I know I need an understanding. No, literally imagine seeing yourself at that age and then imagine having that conversation in regards to what is it that you're needing from me, and listen. Again, they might say they need protection. They might need love. They might need understanding. They might need acceptance, regardless of what it is. And then just give that to them in that particular moment. And that is an exercise that you can do daily to heal the inner child and also to mature the inner child. Because again, what you see is way more important than what you say. And when you can start seeing yourself responding a certain type of way, when you can start seeing yourself giving, reparenting yourself, so giving yourself all the stuff you needed as a particular child, your brain can't tell the difference between what you vividly imagine and an actual experience. So if you get in the habit of really doing this vividly, your nervous system will take it as if it's actually happened. And if it actually happened, then it will be part of your actual experience. So the same way we go through life and we guard ourselves from all these things that happen to us because of the hot stoves, this is the way that you can flip it on the positive side. And now you're not going through life bracing for something. You're going through life with positive expectancy, with confidence, and with faith, because of you're using excitation transfer to your benefit by using your imagination to see yourself as the person you want to be and giving your inner child everything that they needed. That's how you heal it. And then seeing yourself be the person that you want to be is how you mature the inner child. You have, remember, King Solomon, without a vision, people perish. So you got to practice seeing yourself responding how you want to respond. And if you have a hard time creating those images, again, find people who already do it. And that will help you create the image. Then you just put them out of the image and put yourself into it.
Right. Man, I got to grab some of these comments because they are on fire. Say, like, this is deep. The thing that they actually, Isabella said the same thing, that was deep. And She came back and said that it was the truth. And in fact, that is so true. You know, we have the freedom of choice, and we can choose to make the adjustments. But again, we have to know that we can. And so many times, you know, we tell ourselves that we can't. So, man, definitely. And when you mentioned about, you know, how our brain can't tell the difference, in fact, between, you know, what we've imagined and what actually happened. I was watching an interview with Idris Elba and Trevor Noah, and Idris said that one of the things he does to kind of calm down is he DJ. Well, he said he was DJing because he needed the money, you know, before he became an actor. But even after he does acting, I mean, now that he's a star, he still has to do stuff to pretty much decompress his nervous system, because he said that your body doesn't know that, although he's acting. And I was blown away when he said this. He said that your body doesn't know the difference between you're acting and it's real, because he has to get the emotions there. He has to put his body through the ringer to actually produce that convincing performance. And he was saying that his body didn't know the difference. So what he had to do was he had to do something to pretty much decompress himself. Yeah, he was acting. He knew he was acting. His body didn't. And so he had to make it a point to consciously, okay, I got to do something to get myself, to get my nervous system out of this state. So he would go in fact, he would do something else. And I know for myself, me, how I do that, riding a bicycle, because that takes me back to when I was a child, just that freedom of, going as fast as I could physically, and, not really having any worries, wind in my hair, or what you should have. But, just being able to actually, to unplug from all of the, demands of life, and just re-energize and recharge ourselves. So,
No, I
man.
think that's dope. And for me, it's hitting the heavy bag, like going to
Okay.
the gym, and just because I'm a person in which anger for a long time was an emotional home for me. So I'm very familiar with aggression and all that. And I
Mm.
have to get aggression out of my body. I don't like it just sitting in there because then it can become misdirected. So I'm one in which when the emotions is in the body, I just go and I just think about all my problems and I'm just letting it all go
Uh,
out of there. So I agree. We got to learn ways to, for sure, decompress the body and get the stress out for sure.
for sure, for sure, for sure. All right. So, question number 6 says, can you share a personal breakthrough moment when you realized you were no longer controlled by past wounds, but guided by maturity?
Tied into the same moment what I said with the trust issues with my son's mom and all that stuff like that. Literally, once I was able to get to the root cause, that it had nothing to do about her, but it was everything to do with me feeling not safe as a child. Literally, that awareness alone caused a lot of my reactions towards her to just go away. Like when she
Mm,
wouldn't answer the phone no more, I wouldn't even have those type of reactions or responses anymore because it necessarily wasn't about her. Even when we had separated, me and my son's mom, and I was trying to fight to keep the family together and all that because we had a kid, and I grew up separately from my father, so I didn't want that dynamic and all that. So I
right.
was wrestling with this. Oh, I'm a failure because the family separated, so I'm really trying to get this to go together. So I basically had an unhealthy attachment, and then I had to realize that the unhealthy attachment really didn't even have to do anything to do with her. It had to do with mommy and daddy wounds and all that stuff like that. Me
Right.
not feeling desired by my father because he wasn't really around like that. He wasn't really in tune with me like that and all that when I was younger. So I didn't feel desired or wanted by my father. Then my
Right.
mom was always working, so she was always distant. And when she got home, she would just be tired in her room, just reading a book or something. So it wasn't really like a lot of connection. It wasn't really like a lot of validation. So it's like I'm seeking external validation, you know what I'm saying? Because I wanted validation really from my mom and my dad, wasn't getting it. And then I didn't even really get anything from my dad. So I don't even really feel like I was desired or liked by him. So it's like I'm always just wanting to be accepted and all that. And that was playing in me trying to cling to this situation that was clearly dead, clearly dead. And
Mm,
once I had that particular revelation that again, it ain't really even about my son's mom. It's about I got to go deal with these inner child wounds. And dealing with the inner child wounds, it literally relinquished any control that situation had on me. And now we're in a beautiful co-parenting space where my wife and my son's mom can get along. I can FaceTime. If my son is with us and he wants to talk to his mom, I can FaceTime in front of my wife, and it's nothing weird. If they're with my son is with his mom and her boyfriend, and he like, I want to talk to my daddy, she could FaceTime me, and it's not weird at all. We just have strictly, it's just about the kid, and it's cool. So those are two different examples of really about the same relationship in which how my inner child wounds was showing up, but then
right.
how healing those things caused it to show up differently.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, man. Last question, and then we definitely got to find out how people can connect with you and work with you. All right. So, last question says, what encouragement, in fact, would you give to someone who feels stuck in old patterns and unsure if real healing is possible for them?
I would find a role model or a mentor that helps you believe that real healing is possible. So if you can find somebody who was at once in your circumstances and overcame it, that will lead you to believe that it's possible for you. If you can find people who have withstand what you have withstood or endure what you have endured, then that will give you hope that it's possible for you. This is why we don't need to be isolated during our time of healing. And this is
Right.
also why someone once said, don't be conceited in your problems. So many times when we are
Mm,
isolated, we tend to believe that we're the only ones that's experiencing these things. In actuality, we're not. Somebody else have experienced what you have went through and that they have overcame it and they have gotten over it. So the same way, you don't want to have to keep reinventing the wheel. Find people who have successfully navigated the troubled waters that you are currently trying to navigate and follow the person who knows if you are feeling stuck, it's because you are stuck inside your head. Get outside of your head to people who have overcome it, and then they will give you the strategies. They will also give you the realistic roadmap of what to expect along this journey, and then just keep building a relationship with that person. That would be my greatest insight, I would say, for somebody who is stuck in old patterns. And then the more you associate with that person that's not stuck, the more, again, it will start playing into your nervous system. The same way your parents didn't teach you, yo, you react like that. You do, you just picked it up from them. It rubbed off. This is going to be the exact same thing when you associate with this person that is healed, that has overcome. Again, they're not just going to sit you down and be like, you do this, you'll just start learning how to react and respond just from being around them, because our attitudes are contagious, our beliefs are contagious, our behaviors are contagious. We just want to use it intentionally for the positive as opposed to unintentionally using these things for the negative.
Right, man, bruh. Woo! I feel like I've been in the session right now. Man, listen, I appreciate you more than you know. Like, let me get this last comment up here. In fact, Dr. Daniel said, real healing is possible when you own your own, and I guess that's sugar honey iced tea. Accountability is key. Let's see what Isabella says. In fact, she says, McBride Institute, in fact, the people who work with you are most definitely getting something wonderful and powerful from their investment. Congrats. And that is so true, man. So speaking of which, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, get in contact with you, work with you, how would they do that?
The best way is really just to hit my Instagram right now, Instagram or LinkedIn, the McBride Institute, Christopher McBride on LinkedIn, but the McBride Institute on Instagram. And then just shoot me a DM and we can set up a free consultation where you'll just get a free 45 minutes of my time. I'll drill down, try to find the real problems that you're dealing with, figure out whether I feel confident in helping you solve your particular problem, and if you feel confident in me helping you solve your particular problem. And then from there, we can talk about coaching possibilities and coaching packages that I have. But if you just wanted to end it at the free 45-minute consultation, then there is no guilt tripping or negative feelings there either. You get a ton of value, whether you get me as a coach or whether you just get that free 45-minute consultation. So those are the best ways to work with me.
Cool. I got to produce it up on the screen, man. Isabella said, if I one of the best podcast episode I have listened to for a little bit, great info. And I can't agree with her more. So listen, for those of you who are watching the live or the replay, around, in fact, the video, there is a link to his Instagram. So go check him out, go follow him. I'm telling you, he doesn't know the impact that he's had on my life. And I'm going to go back and listen to this podcast again myself because it's been just that impactful. And so, in fact, with that being said, I'm going to get ready to actually close it out. But I do have a couple of other, in fact, we have some sponsors, some additional sponsors of our show. And one of them is none other than my coach, Dr. Ruben West, who's having an event in Nairobi, Kenya next year. But he has a video from where he went this year. Check this out. If you ever thought about going to Africa, if you ever thought about going to Nairobi, definitely you want to reach out to my coach, Dr. Ruben West, or just reach out to me. I can get you in contact with him. I'm telling you, I went with him back in 2023, and that was a life-changing experience. And I'm looking to go back again myself. But we do have one other sponsorship, and then we're going to close out the show. And in fact, that's none other than our good friend, Dr. LaDonya Vet, and her books.
Every soul has a journey, a path waiting to unfold, and a destiny designed just for you. In infinity, the journey to becoming, you'll awaken to your own beginning. In eternity, the path unfolding, you'll find strength in every step forward. And in serendipity, the destiny of you, you'll embrace the beauty of who you were created to be. These are not just books, they are guides, companions for your heart and spirit. Your journey is calling. Answer it today. Purchase the trilogy now, available on Amazon.
Well, again, we want to thank our guest, none other than Chris McBride. Appreciate you, bro, for being on our podcast. Thank you for being our first guest of season 2. I started off last week just kind of doing a recap of a lot of stuff I've been doing over the summer. But, man, what an amazing, powerful episode. And anybody coming after you, they're going to have to step their game up because, I mean, this has been a blessing, man. I appreciate you again. And like I told a good friend of mine in Texas, Coach James Bonds, I told him, I said, listen, if you need me and don't call me, we're going to have a problem. So I'm saying the same thing to you, man. If you need me, call me. I do appreciate it.
The same thing to you, man. I appreciate you having me, man. And the same thing, man. Same standard. If you need me, definitely reach out. Don't hesitate at all.
I will. And with that being said, we're going to close out the show. And my outro just kind of goes on, in fact, with a little bit of my speaking that I do. So until next time, in fact, we'll see you. Thanks again, man. Well, my name is Saucony Prince of SauconyPrince.com, where we make motivation personal by introducing you to yourself. I'm a motivational speaker, a trainer, and a coach. I'm also an author. I help people in the area of personal development and leadership development because I believe that you can't lead others until you learn how to lead yourself. But once you learn how to lead yourself, the next logical step is that you lead other people.
Saucony Prince is the best keynote I've ever seen.
He really encouraged me so much.
He has this ability of seeing in people what they don't see in themselves.
He was so confident. When he was coming to the stage, you could see like, wow, this is a lion.
Any actor that's going for a role, they do a case study. If I'm going to be a fry cook, I go to a restaurant and watch people that are fry cooks. If I'm going to be a mob boss, I go and, well, maybe not go to with a mob, but you take some notes as to what they do. Our children are watching. What can they reference when they step into our shoes? I do what I do because I believe that people have truly yet to understand their purpose. Once you know who you are, nothing can stop you. But until you know who you are, anything can. So my goal is to really help people to understand their purpose and their calling. And oftentimes they have the answers themselves, but they're not asking the right questions. So I help people to get to that place to where they look at themselves, they step back and they see how they've been a help to those around them and what really drives them. And from that, they really understand the value of it. They learn to value their value and see what value their value brings. Because a lot of people, they have yet to do that. Until you know who you are, anything can stop you. But once you know who you are, nothing can stop you. I want you to understand that you are blessed. That you are blessed to be a blessing. That there is somebody looking up to you. They're looking at you. Don't ever forget that. Because if you ever do, you're going to leave them without a mind.
I've learned so much and I've experienced a lot of interactions with people.
The practical approach, like you can't just sit down there, you have to walk up to an opportunity. Sometimes you have to grab the opportunity. Sometimes you have to fight for the opportunity. There's so much life lessons.
I think from today onwards, I'll stretch out and reach to higher levels.